Alright, next up here we got the Paper Trails demo. Let's get her going. April 16th. Oh no. This is Detective Ernest Hunt's office. I am away from the office. Please leave a message. Detective, this is Chandler Lear, the witness from yesterday. I lied yesterday. There's no more going on than I was letting on. I made a terrible mistake and I need your protection. I think my... Chandra, please forgive me. April 16th, 8 a.m., police station lobby. This is it, my first day working at the police station. As a clerk. It's not the most glorious job, but at least I'm safe behind a desk. Still, I'm really nervous. Stay calm, Justina. All you have to do is your job well and keep your head low. Here we go. Wait. Where am I supposed to go? Maybe there's somebody around here that I can ask. Here, how about this? Let's go for a full immersion here. Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry, miss. Unfortunately, I'm in a hurry. Wait! I work here. I mean, well, today's my first day. I'm here for the clerk role. Oh. In that case, I'm Detective Ernest Hunt. Unfortunately, about all the pleasantries I give right now, something important just occurred and I need to get going. Your station should be in back. Miss Earls, our senior clerk there, go speak with her for your assignment. Well, at least I know where my desk is now. Time to meet my supervisor. April 16th, 8:05 a.m. Back at police station. Excuse me, are you Miss Earl? Yes, if you're here to speak to officer, please wait in the lobby. Wait. Oh no. I'm not a civilian. Well, maybe I am. Does the office job here make me a civilian? Office job? Oh, I recognize you. You're the new hire that's transferred from Northern Ranch, right? Yeah, I'm Justina Smith. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm superhero of a new office. I'm the head, and for today, the only clerk here with the branch. However, this is not the first time to chit-chat. It's not the time to chit-chat. Today is a busy day and we need to work it right away. There's a police report from yesterday there that we filed. Something's came up recently that requires my full attention. I trust you can handle the simple filing job. Ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Make sure for all the information make sure all the information matches up correctly. Once you're done, let me know. I want to know why in a rush, but I can ask her about it later. Right now, I need to work. Well, it's about as basic a workstation as you can be. Let's see here. There's a case summary, a witness statement, and a couple of pieces of evidence. Footprints were found inside the room of the robbery. The footprints show that the thief walked towards and away from the house, away from the safe. There is a case summary, a witness statement, and a couple of pieces of evidence. Window was added to the evidence span. The window the thief entered, it unlocks from the inside only. Money for the Cash for Kids charity was stored here. App was stolen. No evidence of tampering. I should look over the evidence and case summary first. The case summary should be with the evidence. This looks like the lead detective reported the witness statement. The camera is on. We can begin. Hey, that sounds like the guy I spoke to earlier. Is he the detective in charge of this investigation? Can you provide your name and occupation for the record? Certain. Chandelier, I work as a maid at the Eubank estate. I appreciate the cooperation now. Can you describe the events that took place earlier? Of course. I was cleaning the hallway when I heard a noise coming from this room. I went inside and saw someone taking money out of the safe. I couldn't get a good look at his face, but he was clearly a 6-foot-tall man carrying lockpicks. When he saw me, he took some of the money and ran to the window, making an escape. I couldn't catch him, so I checked the safe. Half of the money inside was stolen. I called the police to report the crime shortly afterwards. I see. Seems to me like it was a simple robbery. Wait a second. Something doesn't seem right. I think she just lied. I need to look over the evidence again. I'm sure something is missing. When I find a green statement I think has a problem, I can open the evidence menu and submit the evidence. Submitting is an easy clicking. Stop! The evidence contradicts the statement. I won't leave the computer until I find this contradiction. The window! The window only opens from the inside! I was cleaning the hallway when I heard a noise coming from this room. Okay, what's false? I went inside and saw someone taking money out of the safe. I couldn't get a good look at his face, but he was clearly a 6-foot-tall man carrying lockpicks. When he saw me, he took some of the money and ran to the window, making an escape. I couldn't catch him, so I checked the safe. Half the money inside was stolen. I called the police to report the crime shortly afterwards. Damn it! Oh, come on! There's not more evidence. I mean, of course it has nothing to do with it. Nothing does. Kinda has something to do with it. Ah. I'm an idiot. No. Gotta pay attention. That's not one of my strong suits. Fine detail. A theft I am proud of. Around 4:30. Alright, write that down, everybody. 4:30. Around 4:30, I covert snuck towards the window. I was able to use my skills to open the window lock. When I got inside, I moved towards the safe. I used my tools to open the safe and grabbed as much money as I could. I was in a hurry, so I ended up grabbing about half the money in the safe. I can't believe it took you an entire day to find me. I thought the police were better than that. Yeah. Ah, come on! Mm. Oh, bullshit. Alright. No evidence of tampering. She didn't crack it. She's lying. She's lying about cracking it. Big brain! Computer, Nintendo, GameCube looks interesting. Steam. Steam game. I mean, it could be on, it's probably an early release, a pre-release. Generally, by the time they, release their demos, they stop, putting the demos out. Yeah, it is an interesting game. I almost gave up on it at first. Oh, were we right? I thought we... There's another thing. I don't get it. Ah. There's one more. There's three things she's like. She was lying about the safe and the window. Footprints are found inside the room. Why I get the feeling 4:30 is just has something to do with something. Something. I never said my tools were my lockpicks. I mean, my greatest tool of all is patience. I just waited for the maid to open up the safe, and I robbed it after she left. No! That's not what happened. You're saying that Miss Lear opened up both the safe and the window, then she just left the room? Yes. Shut up. You're killing me, Smalls. Kill me. That doesn't make sense. That would have to be the biggest coincidence ever. But not impossible. Unless you can prove otherwise. Damn! There we go. Oh, snap! Oh, here we go. Here we go. Next one. Let's do it. Let's do it. Everybody paying attention? Alright. The lockpicks were needed to enter the estate. There's a gate with a padlock that I picked in order to get onto the property. I placed my lockpicks in my hair afterwards. Bullshit. Bullshit. The maid saw you carrying lockpicks. Or saw someone carrying lockpicks. I had no need for them once I got to the window. So why didn't the maid see you with them? Okay, so the gate was... Okay, that's true. I already got it. Okay, what is our grand decision? Miss Lear was the true thief. There was never a robbery at all. What? The two knew each other. She was trying to stop the robbery. Well, clearly that's not true. We need more testimony from Miss York. The two knew each other, obviously. Confess! We got you! Yay! We did it! We solved our first case! You're going away for a long time, see? No, probably not. You just don't. I can't believe you. How can you crack jokes at a time like this? Lighten up, Miss Assistant. We won this round. You can have some fun now. Ha 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 ha. You haven't taken this seriously at any point. Miss Short, we have a few questions to ask now. Don't you already know everything? Just throw me in a jail cell. I don't think you were stealing based on grade. If you were, why would you only take half the money? So I want to offer you a chance to tell us why you stole the money. You know what that money in the safe was used for, right? It was charity money, but I don't know which charity it was for. It's a charity run by the Eubank estate. They raise money for a local orphanage. I have to say, stealing from orphans doesn't paint you in the best light. Oh, I'm sure charity is on the up and up, because we all know every charity, all that money goes toward the people that it's supposed to, right? Every year, Mr. Eubank raises money for the charity, but he's been lying about how much he receives. The amount they raise and the amount that goes to the charity is different. Chandra helped with the fundraising, and she had figured out there was a discrepancy. Hold on! If he's wealthy enough to have a charity, why is he stealing money from it? Because he can. Hold on, Miss Assistant. None of this is proven. She lied once already. We have to take the rest with a grain of salt. Still, why would he keep the charity money in a safe? Wouldn't a bank account be safer? She's got you there. Banks keep records. If he was ever audited, the records would reveal what he did. Oh, she's got you there. Eubanks own one of the largest investment firms in the country. They know how to avoid leaving a paper trail. Then why would you give Miss Lear the code to the safe? Well, I don't really know. Chandra never told me. So why did the two of you get involved? Chandra couldn't accept what was going on, the Eubanks stealing money away from children who had nothing. She told me what was going on and what her plan was, so I agreed to help her. And what were you planning to do with the money after you stole it? Well, we didn't figure that part out. We didn't expect to get caught so quickly. You know, if you told me you had planned to anonymously donate the money, I could almost respect this plan. Regardless, we'll still have to charge you. Charge me, but please at least get Chandra off with a lighter sentence. I was the one who stole the money. All she did was open the window in the safe. I know you'll go arrest her after this, but you have to understand that. Stop it. You're ruining my story time. Butts. Oh no, she doesn't know what happened. I'm sorry, Miss Yor. We have some bad news. We got a call from the Eubank estate this morning. Miss Lear was attacked, and she's in critical condition. What? No, you're joking, right? You're just trying to get me to say more. While you'll be trying to arts me. Afraid pending further investigation. This will be the account. What? No! Why would I try to kill Chandra? We're best friends. I would never hurt her. I believe you, but we don't have a choice right now. You'll be detained here until further notice. I can assure you, however, that your cooperation won't go unnoticed. You have the legal right to a public defender in your case goes forward. To hell with the lawyer! Why did you hide this from me until now? Did you just want to watch me struggle? Stop! You're killing me. Stop! No! I'm sorry, but it would be of your best interest if you didn't speak to us further without a lawyer. The two of us would best be going now. I wish I could do more for you, and that music is really loud. I don't know if I was talking loud, but the music was really loud. All right. Thank you. Cross out. Alright, I don't know if that's where the devil's gonna cut it off, but I think that's where I'm gonna cut it off. Good game. I do not play games like this, and you know, to be honest, I don't know how it ended up on my list, but I'm glad I played it. I'm glad I stuck with it. And yeah, it's a cool little, you know, reading detective game. There we go.